Hello and welcome to Natsukashii, the old anime podcast. Today we're going to be discussing Jin-Roh, and I'm joined by KevinNyaa,
Hey, how's it going?
ManMode,
I am not old.
and Metahulk, or the anime connoisseur.
Milady?
Thank you.
There are no ladies here.
So yeah, this is a movie from 1999 that originally the script and story and the original creator is Mamoru Oshii, obviously of Ghost in the Shell fame, and it's directed by that's the wrong person, by Hiroyuki Okiura.
It's a Japanese
So-
guy.
Yeah, it's Japanese human.
We
So, this is, as is common with Oshii's works, can be pretty confusing at times. So I just want to get your first impressions, or if you've seen it before, your second impressions. If anyone wants to jump in with that.
Yeah. I feel the same about this movie as I do about Ghost in a Shell. It's a movie that's fun to watch. It looks great. And it has cool action when it has. But from the beginning, and I'm starting off with my problem. From the beginning, you get the feeling like it's gonna have like a deep message. It's taking itself seriously. And in the end, I was like, okay, I mean, it was a fun movie, but it didn't say much. That's how I feel about this movie.
It felt like it was going to be a political drama involving military, but it was more of a inside mission or the inside coup or the inside spy thing which was going in with the military, and it was like a pleasant surprise, but not what I expected.
Yeah, after watching this film the second time, I watched it I think 2 years ago the first time, and my thoughts haven't really changed. I think it's, first of all, obviously the technical ability, animation, and the soundtrack is really well done compared with each other, and you actually how the sound design in that film, I think is probably one of the best parts in it, because it makes everything feel realistic and really gritty. When in other films, when people shoot guns, it doesn't feel like the guns actually have power in this film, but in this one it does.
Yeah, I was going to say
You can really feel it.
the guns, man, they sound good. And even when he's reloading or pulling the ammo, it's yes.
When he's loading the
Yes,
bullets in
please,
his
more
machine gun,
guns.
Just the little
that was
details.
So nice. He's holding it above his arm, then he's dragging it to this the magazine clip, and then he just shuts the lid, and it's kachak, and it sounds so good. It sounds really organic.
Yeah. I watched this for the first time myself as well, and it was kind of I was taking notes as I was watching it, and I was trying to follow any possible through lines, and it does seem like there was some intention, but that ultimately it felt kind of like a simple concept that was made complex without much particular reason for it to be so. And this is speaking as someone who I thoroughly enjoyed Ghost in the Shell, and I particularly appreciated Angel's Egg. So it was definitely an experience for sure, but it's kind of hard to quantify exactly how I feel about it overall.
I think one of my biggest problems, or not really problems, just something I prefer, is that the characters in this film don't feel like characters, but puppets in a grander scale of military espionage. It doesn't feel like they do things for themselves, but for a greater message within the film.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was trying to do. But I don't think the message was that complex. It was there, but I don't think it took itself way too seriously, I think, for such a simple message.
What would you say
Right.
was the message?
Don't fuck with the army.
Don't fuck with the wolves. Yeah, no. It was all the wolf metaphor of how.
The main guy.
What was this guy's name
Fusei.
again? Fusei. Yeah, Fusei. I think it is.
Fusei.
Yeah.
He really looks like Guts, man. I couldn't just ignore the fact. He really resembled Guts.
Oh my guts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
Clean shaven guts.
I would phrase it the recurring metaphor there's like the wolf idea that the imagery pervades throughout the film, and of course they literally just tell you the story of Little Red Riding Hood, which I'm assuming is the original version because it's much more gruesome, and that's usually how a lot of these fairy tales start, is they're pretty gruesome, and then it's like they get lightened up with later iterations.
I get that, but like
What-
throughout the movie, I was trying to like identify what the main theme of this movie is, and I get that it was like the Red Riding Hood story, but I honestly can't identify what the main like message, the main theme, what was the movie trying to say.
Don't fuck with the army.
Here's my my perception as to what it was going for. And that's this, they consistently establish this idea of humans and beasts, and that they're, or at least, and it comes up in different occasions. At the beginning, they establish the difference between the terrorists and the army. And when they're having, the government workers or like army officials are having this meeting in a room, and they talk about how the terrorists believe they're in the right, and their belief system is fundamentally different. Like, they don't operate on the same level. Their differences are essentially irreconcilable. And then later on, they talk more about, it goes into the whole humans and beasts thing, and that Fusei, he's not a man in wolf's clothing, he's a wolf in man's clothing. And this whole concept of both belonging to a group, and that you sort of can't separate yourself from that as much as you try. It's kind of it's a very nihilistic film, at least from my interpretation.
It's interesting, yeah. I thought from the beginning it was going to be like more shallow. I thought it was going to be like some anti-government, or maybe the opposite. Maybe it's like why we should maybe trust the government more, or something like that. Although that's almost never the case. But yeah, I thought it was going to be more shallow. So maybe because of that, I couldn't identify the themes clearly.
Yeah. Well, what I had expected to happen, because it does seem to set up like it's going to be some sort of big political drama, right? With all the different, sects and all the double crossings and whatnot. But they don't really clearly establish the goals or motivations of each particular group, except for in very vague terminology. And I mean, you could probably go into more depth about this, but they also don't do a very good job of differentiating between the groups in a way that makes it easy to follow the narrative progression.
That's my
definitely.
main criticism of this movie. It doesn't from the beginning say, this is the name of this group, these people are in this group, and maybe have like a face of that group. These are the motives, and also like there are no distinct character design. They're just mostly old Japanese men. Like throughout the movie, I forgot, wait, who are you? For which organization you work exactly? It doesn't have like any unique character designs, I would say.
Well, there are two main divisions in this story: the Central Police and the Special Unit. The Special Unit is the
Brigade.
The Brigade. No, the Brigade is another special secret unit inside the Special Unit.
Inside the unit. Oh.
Okay, so So basically what it is like, the main Fusei gets like, he didn't shoot the girl, and then he is sent back to the training academy where the instructor is there. But basically both Fusei and instructor are part of the special Wolf Brigade, and they both meet up and like do this plan where they're trying to put Fusei as a bait for the central police to set up, so that people can think that the special brigade can't be trusted and the central police needs to be the main police. And then basically the Wolf Brigade were the one actually manipulating things behind the scenes, and they like get the whole, and all the twists happen in the story. I don't know if we're supposed to like talk about spoilers and thing.
Yeah.
I think we can go into spoilers.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
this
This is like,
hour 40
sometimes I
film.
avoid it, but like this movie is already well known, and I feel like it's really hard to have a discussion about this in any sense that's interesting without going into the spoilers, because it's so inherent to the structure of the movie.
Yeah, because on the surface doesn't have anything special or any themes that it presents. It's just the story and the characters and the twist in the story. There are like 3 different main twists. Like one is his friend's betrayal, and second is like him turning out to be the guy who was like he being the part of the Wolf Brigade. It was like speculating from the start that he would be part of the Wolf Brigade or he would join the Wolf Brigade. And then the last twist was like him having to kill the girl.
It's very plot heavy.
Yeah, the Red Riding Hood theme was really heavy in the story, and I especially like the ending part where she like cites the girl's dialogues.
Mm-hmm.
It was good symbolism.
And I mean, I guess it's scattered, but I'm sort of just following whatever train of thought the discussion leads, and that's the one thing that makes me feel like the theme isn't maybe necessarily as clearly established as it seemed like it was set up to be, because like what I was expecting it to do, right, because it established this relationship with Fusei and Amemiya, and she sort of represents this aspect of she literally represents humanity pretty much. He's the wolf, he's the beast, and this is the dichotomy, and they grow closer, and then even through the various double crossings, I was in that ending scene, I was expecting him to turn on his brigade leader and, run off with her. That would have been a pretty logical progression, I feel, of what it was setting up, whereas instead it chooses to reject that. But even then, he isn't the one to kill her. It's the other dude. I don't know if they named him.
The other dude, I think, no, Fusei shot her, right? It wasn't the other dude.
No.
Fusei was just making the other dude was making this show that
he had the gun. Yeah, I thought it was Fusei as well.
Yeah.
He had the gun like at her waist.
Okay.
At the end.
I wasn't. It didn't seem quite clear to me, because it immediately cut from that to the.
No, the
to
other guy was
guy
just
holding the gun
checking
at the
that he didn't shoot.
Yeah.
Oh wow. No, now that I think about it, I don't think
Did we
they
all
made
miss
it clear. I think they made it like that intentionally.
Is it purposely ambiguous?
Yeah.
At the end there.
That would
But
make
I'm
sense.
I'm pretty sure we're supposed to think that he killed her because they're setting up that wolf motif like from the very start.
right.
Like once he's a wolf, he's always a wolf. Like can't break away from his past.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it definitely does. It sort of
Yeah, he shot her.
explores this territory. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's some.
Did you just
I wish
Google check?
I wish they had made
No,
that
I
a
just
little
watched it.
clearer.
It was like he shot. There was a short sound, and then it shows his gun, and the bullet unloads, and there's steam
In the stomach, right?
There's steam coming out from his gun. Bullet.
Okay.
Smoke.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Now. Is
Solo
this
shot
whole-
first, damn it.
Yeah, this sort of whole concept of this need to belong, and like even with her, like she sort of understands that because of her position, this is sort of what has to happen, and even when she ends up betraying him, and she describes like why she went, like what was happening in her mind during that time. It was like it became easy. Like I didn't have to think. I could just follow orders. And it seems like the film is exploring that territory of being... It's interesting because we have these big groups that are so vague, but then it chooses to focus on individuals while contextualizing them within their nature as like members of a group, because there's not a whole lot to them as like individual people. It's more about the fact that they are so different, like there is no way to reconcile that, and that because of their nature it's sort of, the ending is inevitable.
It was... Yeah.
I can sort of see that. I mean,
No, I was just saying that...
Go ahead.
Because it was a group thing, he had to shoot her. If it was a much more individual character based, I'm pretty sure that they would have gone the route that he doesn't shoot her and betrays his people.
Yeah. You had a thought, Kevin?
Yeah, just building up on what you said. I mean, you say that this film only had like one visual motif, or not one, but like the main visual motif was the wolves. But I think there was some about like, obviously during World War II, of how the like clashing ideologies will always clash. That like there's no way to like have peace between the enemy. That's why I feel like the groups were like so how do you put this, like so distant, like there's no like actual recognizable group. It's just that they're the others and they're the enemy, so we should fight them. That's why there was like no distinct group.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I guess I'll also bring this up because there is this sort of secondary theme that it doesn't explore quite as in depth, but it does at least establish, and particularly through the lens of Amemiya, it's sort of like the center point of her character, I would say, is this idea of perception and memory. Like I wrote this one line where she says it doesn't take long for us to forget, or maybe we never notice in the first place, when they're at the park and she's pointing out the destroyed building. And then later on in the scene where he goes off to basically go on his it's pretty much an execution. It's pretty brutal. After he's revealed to be a part of Jin-Roh of the Wolf Brigade, she shouts simply like she wanted someone to remember. It would have been better if they had both died. She would have had a place in someone's part. She would have been remembered by someone. And I don't know quite where it was going with this idea, and if it was trying to play on this aspect as maybe not necessarily a semblance of hope, but of possible balance between the human and beast side, in that he never really rejects her outright. Even in the final scene, it's particularly emotional, and it's the first time we see him like actually break down into tears. So I'm curious if that was in interplay, but I'm not entirely certain as to what the intention was behind that idea.
Yeah, I understand. So, like, yeah, the juxtapose between Fusei at the beginning of the film, he's, like, cold, straightforward, calculated, but then when he doesn't shoot the girl, there's, like, this sense of humanity still with him. And then throughout the film, he tries to... I can't pronounce the name.
Amamiya.
The girl. And then... Amamiya. At the end, even, like... He's, like, really reluctant not to shoot her, but then he still shoots it anyway, because he's supposed to be a wolf. But then you see what that did to his psyche, like breaks down emotionally after he spent this whole time helping her, only to shoot her at the end.
Yeah, basically the end dialogue was, let him finish her while he is still a beast. Like he was slowly becoming more human.
Yeah.
And Basically, just him finishing her off was like kind of symbolizing his final deed as a beast. So basically, the open ending can be taken as like he leaves the military and tries to live a normal life, but that wouldn't even be possible because of how the organization is.
Yeah. And it's curious because of a lot of this almost feels when they reveal that he is a part of the special brigade, right, of the counterintelligence unit, and that essentially this has sort of all been planned out from the start, it makes you kind of question the movie and wonder if it might be how reliable its perspective is, at least for me, because you're considering the fact that it's basically rejecting the idea that there was this aspect of humanity, and that no, all along he was a wolf, and he will forever be a wolf, no matter what he does, because of how they go through the whole ring of sort of building his connection with Amamiya, and then they reveal on both sides. On her side, reveal that she was, working against him, and that this was all, a farce from the beginning. And then on his side, that he's a part of the Special Brigade. So it's interesting in that it presents this sort of more standardized romance situation, and then kind of just completely rejects that in the third act.
It's very interesting.
Although
very
a
interesting.
counterpoint to that. Oh God, you go.
I'm listening to a lot of this, and yes, it makes sense, but I haven't thought about most of what you guys are saying, like in terms of metaphors and stuff like that. And it's just like, when you're putting together a puzzle, right? If you like the picture, you're going to pay more attention to where each puzzle goes, and you're going to be more motivated to complete it. I couldn't really have an emotional connection to most of the stuff that was happening throughout the movie. And that's why I think I couldn't put all the puzzles together like you guys did. And
It's mostly core though.
yeah, but with movies, with art in general, I look for that one theme that, so I can learn something, so I can apply it to real life. Like, sure, I get the wolf metaphor. I get that the beast will always stay a beast, and everything that you guys say, but I'm asking myself, do I enjoy this, like, theme? How is this, like, how can I apply this to the real world?
Being completely, yeah.
Yeah, how do I get value from this film? I understand what you're saying, because I feel that the same way. Like, I don't think Jin-Roh is like anywhere near a bad film, but I can't, like, while there are glimpses of character development within the film, there isn't enough to let the themes or motifs reach a point where it actually interestingly connects to the viewer or myself even, because like all the situations the characters find themselves in are often like cold and alienating, and it's just, I can't, while it's like obviously devastating to watch, I can't apply that anywhere within my values or attitudes, or like even in real life. It's just a story I'm watching.
Yeah, I definitely, for me, the reason I ended up getting so attached to it's like the themes, even though I am, based on my current interpretation, I pretty vehemently disagree with what it's trying to say, is mainly because I do feel like everything else about this movie is really shallow outside of its, and I'm not even trying to say that maybe its themes are the most strong or poignant in that vein, but rather that so much of the movie is comprised of stuff that relates to the themes, both like most of the dialogue. I mean, they have this constant narration of the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Most of the dialogue relates to that in some manner, and a lot of the sequences visually, there's so many, sequences where it's literally just like images of wolves and stuff like that, that's only purpose really serves to, I mean, of course, to some degree establish tone, but really is all about hammering its thematic imagery into your brain to the degree that it does feel like there's not much else to the movie outside of that.
Yeah. With that said, I still enjoyed the movie a lot. I thought it was a cool movie, even though I couldn't like connect with it.
Most of the film is just like really slow paced, like really slow paced atmosphere with some like short bursts of violence. But then when the violence does occur, it's often like really emotionally charged, and you reflect this, like what can be seen in the film as can be seen what's happened in human history, of how the government, or not even just government, just like groups of people being really violent towards each other and oppressing others to motivate their political ideologies.
I guess that is one thing that is, I mean, if there's anything that it's worth watching this movie for, it's definitely its visual prowess, because I mean, sure, it's a bunch of old Japanese guys, but
The mirrors look good.
This movie is pretty
They shoot
beautiful.
each other.
The mirrors are beautiful. The reflection on them are like totally accurate to how real life ones work. When they are like in the museum, so if you can just check out the scene, I wasn't even looking at the characters, I was looking at the reflection, and it was like so good realistically. Like they are not completely visible in the mirror, but there is some like faded part of them, like like where the light is hitting, like their torso part is not there, but then the leg part is there and which is very lightly faded. Then their face is like reflected on the mirror. It was really good. The mirrors were good.
Yeah. And even with all the symbolism and imagery, when you're watching the movie, like it makes you think, you're like, cool, he's standing next to wolves, he's part of the pact. And when it's telling the story or like putting together and it's foreshadowing the whole movie, it's nice.
Yeah. I definitely like the way it establishes the sort of tone through its visuals, and also with this is a thing I've seen, at least in the works by Oshii I've seen, even though it's not directed by him, it has a lot of the similar stuff where it feels like every shot is going out of its way to be like, how visually iconic and can I present each image as, like, how can I use the lighting and the framing and the shot composition to make this image really memorable in and of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and surely the scene where the wolves are like chowing on the girl, it's really memorable. I still can't get that thing out of my head.
Oh yeah, the violence is extremely gruesome and visceral.
So what action set piece like stood out for you guys? Because for me it was the riot in the town against the military. Everyone throwing Molotovs gases everywhere. I think that scene was just really well done. Like it actually made me feel like I was just like a bystander watching this go down.
Yeah, that scene especially, and I noticed that a lot, and I feel like it's both like the visuals and also like the fantastic sound design. Is like when there's all these crowds of people, it feels really hectic and frenzied. The attention to detail on the crowds is impressive.
just like how a real riot is. Like you don't know what's actually
like
going
with all
on.
the fog and stuff,
and there's just people shouting, screaming. Yeah, and then when they run into the tunnel, you get this feeling that the what do you call those suits of armor? Just like the brigade armor. They always have this like menacing feel, and when the gun just powers up and just shreds through the people in the tunnels.
The glowing red eyes, obviously.
Yeah.
For me, the most powerful scene was probably when he's hunting down the police officials, Fuse, because it's
Oh yeah, when they're trying to escape.
it's got this sort of like sense of inevitability to it.
Yeah.
That like you see what's his name, the old friend of Fuse's who was betraying him.
Yeah, I was going to
Hajime,
say
no.
that it's Hajime?
Henmi.
I was
Yeah,
going to
Henmi.
say that's my favorite.
Yeah,
part
when he's
of the
chasing
movie.
him. And
When he gets cornered.
yeah, and he just looks up and there's no way for him to escape. And the Fuse comes from his behind and he's like loading his machine gun.
Yeah, and then he shoots him with like grenade gun or whatever. And
No,
it's just like
that was
bing,
the previous guy.
bounces off.
Yeah.
Are we talking about two different things?
No, we're talking about the same thing. You just said his friend shoots him.
It's the same scene, just the
guy before was-
who was hiding. Oh yeah, that scene was really powerful.
And then he starts like reloading it and starts shooting the water, and while the bridge behind him is crumbling, it's a really cool scene.
Yeah.
You could almost say it's like a wolf hunting down its prey.
Wow.
That's too deep for me, man. I couldn't notice that.
I would say that if I had one small qualm with the visuals, as good as it is, it did kind of feel like there wasn't a whole lot in here that really utilizes animation in a way that felt like it couldn't have been conveyed with live action.
Yeah,
Especially because the character designs are so realistic, the animation is so realistic. A lot of it felt very much like, well, I mean, I love seeing it in animation. It looks great, but I didn't really see it as it would have been any worse off if it was live action. You know, Kevin, you mentioned the soundtrack. I don't know if you have anything deeper to say, but I really I felt like the soundtrack was probably one of my favorite things about the movie as a whole myself.
more to the vein that the sound design was really awesome. All the sound effects of like the what ManMode said, the rocket like bouncing off his armor and it's going ting, and then him starting to shoot his the machine gun, and while the sound of the grenade bouncing off his armor was still in the background, and the explosion was there at the same time, and he just started shooting his gun. All three sounds just blended really well, and it didn't feel jarring. Like if it was done cheaply, then it would have sounded really off, but they like made it really well.
Yeah, it definitely contributes to the whole visceral feeling of all the action and violence and the hecticness of the crowds. And I do feel like a lot of times when movies are going for a darker feel, especially this is prevalent in anime, they like to really over-exaggerate the darker moments, whereas oftentimes it's just playing it straight is the most effective way you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, indiscriminate violence often feels more darker than overblowing the violence. But yeah, speaking of the music, I thought that music was fine overall. There's some like good tracks I like, but I think like for the film, the most like emotionally charged moments for me were when like there was no music played. It was just like a quiet moment within the film, like especially at the end where it's just the girl reciting Little Red Riding Hood, and then he still shoots her anyway. You just hear the gun, and then without any music, and I think that was more powerful than if you had more
There
music.
aren't many
I would say
musical pieces in this film. Like the first half has plenty of them, but the second half is mostly just gun sounds and silence.
I would probably give credit to the sound designer for that decision, because it's a very intelligent one. I particularly enjoy the soundtrack because it sort of plays into this like there's this secondary or tertiary idea of like running away, and also like this otherworldliness, I guess I would put it as. And in the soundtrack, there's like a billion different musical styles in the soundtrack. Like, not only do we have spacey high reverb electric guitar, or we have like more percussive music that would be more like, I would say, reminiscent of traditional Indian or African music. We also have like standard romanticism, even a bit of French impressionism. The musical stylings of the soundtrack are vary a lot, which I think helps give this feeling of otherworldliness that it has, and perhaps even of this sensation of a sort of emotional detachment almost. Such as in response to a lot of the scenes of violence. I would say, even though it is so visceral, the way it projects it in presentation creates this sort of situation where you just witness it, but it doesn't have the emotional impact that you might that you sort of perceive is what you're supposed to feel. Being a human, seeing someone get killed is supposed to be this very, dark, emotional experience. And the way the movie presents this is sort of like, no, we're actually monsters type of idea, which it has in the presentation, with how just sort of straightforward it is, and kind of naturalistic, that it's shikata ganai, it can't be helped.
Yeah, I see that. It's like trying to portray this world as really sinful, but then in a way that everyone sins, that it's normal. In fact, like, violence is an everyday part of life. It doesn't overplay its day, and it doesn't glorify it in any way. It's just, here's the violence, and make it out how you will, basically.
Yeah. Anyone else have any specific aspects of the film that they wanted to bring up, or any particular scenes that stood out to you outside of just the moments of violence?
Like the one where he escapes the training camp, and the way he does it, like, first he checks his book, and first he thinks of taking his gun with him, then he just leaves it there, and he just jumps out of the window, then like he just fences over. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, the how easy it was.
Yeah,
was
he made it.
what I thought was amusing.
He made it seem so like easy. He just was like, "Oh, I'll just do it," and casually jumps over the fucking fence.
I will say it's really impressive how they animated the suits. Like, the screenshot I posted, like, when you're watching, it almost looks like there's CG in it.
The armor, right?
Yeah. I don't know, man. There's some fucking Japanese magic in there. And just a small thing, but I really appreciate when cars are drawn in anime. When I saw that, I was like, oh shit. It's a drawn car. It's real. It's not a myth.
You should watch Lupin for that. They have really well drawn cars. Lupin the Third.
Yeah. All the explosions and effects, and it's nice to see, or a crowd shot with actual drawn people that
the mob
move and express. Yeah,
the mob was beautiful.
And one of the particular scenes that it just sort of ingrained itself in my brain is when he's going to visit her, right? And he's on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
This is before he runs away with her. It's just him by himself on the bus, and he's standing on the bus, and he just sort of looks at each individual person around him on the bus, and you see like all the little ticks of the people, and it's like an interesting reminder of all these people are to some degree individuals, and especially with the little ways they characterize them visually. Almost some of the characters that don't even speak seem to have more character than some of the characters that are prominent within the movie.
Basically all of them except for Fuse. Like, I think Fuse is the only one that actually changes but then doesn't at the end.
Yeah.
Everyone else just like stuck in their mindset and ideology.
You thought I changed, but fuck you, haha. I'm still gonna shoot this bitch.
You thought I was becoming human, but it was
Jin-Roh
me.
becoming human.
I wonder if it's feel free to interrupt me anytime, by the way. I'm talking plenty, I know. I wonder if it is trying to convey a sort of idea of something more in the vein of what is particularly common in modernist fiction, where it's almost more about the conversation than it is about the message. So it's like, if it made you think, then it succeeded in its goal. Though, like as we discussed, it I think could have done a better job of making you want to think about it.
Another thing I noticed about this film is that he basically has these visuals about, like, when he's training at the camp and he has to shoot the guy. He basically sees the Amamiya in that person. So basically he was, if you can take it as that he was bracing himself for the time that he'll have to kill her from the very beginning of the film, and they foreshadowed it from the very start.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, because it during the first watch, it basically seems like he's relating that to her, because he thinks that she is her sister of the girl that exploded in front of him. But then after you like go through those scenes again, you can take it from another perspective, that he knows what he has to do at the end. So he's basically bracing himself throughout the story for when he'll have to kill him. Because if you notice it, during those scenes, it is Amamiya, not the girl who explodes in front of her, that is being hunted by by the wolves or being shot by him. It is Amamiya. So basically he's bracing himself from the very beginning, and he knows that it is an inevitable event that has to happen because of what kind of job or mission he has been given.
His identity within society.
Yeah,
that's a good point. And with that, I think we can move towards wrapping things up. So I just want to get your final thoughts, and your, like, would you recommend it, or if you have an addendum to that recommendation, feel free to add that. So let's start with Kevin.
Would I recommend this film? I'd say you should just at least watch it once. Everyone should actually just watch it once, and whether or not it's your favorite, it's like up for you to decide, obviously. But for me, I didn't feel like it didn't. The message or the themes that the film presented didn't connect or resonate with me in any way. But I thought it was pretty interesting, and the animation in and of itself was definitely worthy of praise. But as far as being a favorite, I wouldn't think so.
Right. ManMode.
I would say what Demo said in his video. I remember, save it for the rainy day. It's a very atmospheric movie. Look, I like to watch a lot of dumb shit. I just wanna feel like, when I'm watching something, I want to go like, oh, that's cool. I'm having fun. And this movie has a lot of that. And it has a lot of things that make you think, though the reason I consume art at the end of the day is because of the themes and the messages. And like Kevin said, they didn't resonate with me. But I do recommend watching the movie.
Right. Metahulk.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to mention was that during the part when he's practicing shooting, and his friend comes up. So you basically, during that part, you know that he knows that his friend is double crossing him, and so basically the way he acts in front of his friend is nothing different from what the way he acted before. But it just feels so natural for him to lie to people and put up this act, which basically like is again, if you go through it again, you basically catch these little details that if you like knew that he was going to be the part of the Wolf Brigade from the very beginning, you would have like kind of picked up on these notes. And another thing, I really love the jacket. It's really cool.
The jacket, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and that those red tinted aviators that one of the generals wears, they were pretty cool as well.
So I take it you would recommend this movie.
I would recommend that jacket. No, but in all seriousness, it is not a film that I would like have top of my head while recommending someone a movie to watch. But if it comes up in a conversation, I will surely tell the person who hasn't seen it to give it a try at least once, and like just skip through the scenes again after watching the film to like pick up on the subtle notes and foreshadowing they had done.
Yeah. For my personal perspective, yeah, I would recommend it, but I do feel like it kind of falls short, even in comparison to Oshii's other work. The thematic exploration doesn't feel quite as well explored. The themes it does touch on aren't exactly what I find the most interesting. I did find them somewhat worth taking into consideration, but even then, I do feel like its themes are maybe a little bit shallow, and it still spends so much time establishing them that the rest of the movie doesn't have much substance to it either. But on a purely experiential level, it's a pretty good time. I mean, I was genuinely emotionally affected by the climactic scene. The soundtrack is fantastic. The visuals are great. It's really well just directed and constructed film from that perspective, like the sound design obviously, and just the way the scenes are mapped out and structured, and the general tone and feeling of it. It's a good movie on that front. So I would say it's worth a watch.
Oh, and another thing I would like to add is that they really do a great work with the background characters and the world, because in most of the recent anime, it is more like, no, the main cast is the end all thing in the universe. They are the main center of the attention and all the events. But here, you basically see that their life goes on, like there are other people's lives going on behind the main story, and you can just like view. There's like the background characters have life, and they have like more personality than other shows' main characters.
Yeah, if anything, if you didn't take anything from the themes like I did, then you should just watch it for like basically just for the atmosphere alone of how violence is just treated like as an everyday occurrence. Like I feel like the themes or the motifs it's trying to portray were a tad bit overblown, especially if you didn't like find it interesting or connect with it in any way. But for the atmospheric scenes themselves, I think it's like just worth to watch it by itself.
This film it felt like it was a biography written by the general. It was a biographic documentary about Fusei, which was written by the general of the Wolf Brigade.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to say it for sure. So that has been Natsukashii talking about Jin-Roh. This was requested actually in the comments by Cypher, so thank you for your request. I've been joined by KevinNyaa.
You can find me at youtube.com/KevinNyaa, or just tweet at me, to be honest.
ManMode.
YouTube.com/ManMode, Patreon.com/ManMode.
Metahulk.
Yeah, The Anime Connoisseur on YouTube and Metahulk98 on Twitter and patreon.com/mothersbasement on Patreon.
No.
And as always, I've been your
no.
host, of Core Reviews. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, my dudes.
See ya.